Hello everyone! Welcome to this new lesson where we will be learning about the animation fill mode property. Alright, so what we did in the last lesson is we made this div move to the right 1000 pixels, then towards the bottom 500 pixels, like so. And then, after the animation ends, you'll notice that the div is just popping back into its original place. That may seem odd. So what if we want to make the div stay in its final position where the animation ends, instead of popping back like that? Well, we can do that using the animation fill mode property, which basically tells the browser what to do with the element outside the animation window, meaning before the animation starts and after it ends. So here we're dealing with the second case, which is after the animation ends. And there are two choices. The first one is the element will pop back to its original place, which is the default. And the second is the element will stay in its final position. And we will do that using the animation fill mode property. So back to our CSS. I will go right here inside the div selector and add animation fill mode. And we have four values. The first one is none, which does nothing outside the animation window. It will just say, when the animation is finished, return the div to its original state before the animation. And of course, it's the default value. The second value is forwards, which should interest us in our situation, because forwards tells the browser to take the last stage of the animation, here, and apply it to the element at the end of the animation. So now, when I go to the browser and reload, you can see that the element stays at its final position and doesn't pop back to its original place before the animation. Personally, I think this looks more realistic. Now, we can also use a value called backwards. So to demonstrate this, I will just go back to my CSS. I will go right here and add another property, which is animation delay. And let's say 3 seconds. And what this will do is it will make the animation wait 3 seconds before it starts. So if I go to my browser and refresh, you can see the div waits 3 seconds and then starts to move. Back to our CSS. Now, let's say we want the animation to start from 500 pixels to the right and not from its original place on the page. I will go right here and change this to 500 pixels instead of 0. I will also change this 10% to, let's say, 50%, because I want the horizontal movement to take a longer time so that we can really see it. And I will also change the transition duration to 5 seconds so that we can see what is happening clearly. Now, according to the code that we have right here, what should happen is the animation should wait 3 seconds and then it should start from this point right here, which is 500 pixels to the right of its original position. And then the animation should go on until it's finished. And at the end, the div should stay in its final position because we set the animation fill mode to forwards. So when I go to the browser and reload, you can see the animation waits for 3 seconds, then the element pops 500 pixels to the right. Then the animation starts and moves on like before. Now, this might not be what you expected. You may have thought that the div would begin here, 500 pixels to the right, and then wait 3 seconds, and then after that, the animation would start. I mean, that makes sense because we set the starting point of the animation at 500 pixels to the right. But this is not the default. You remember that the default is that before the animation starts and after it ends, the element should be in its original place. We were able to change the position after the animation is finished and make it the final point of the animation using forwards as a value of the animation fill mode property. And we can also do that and make the animation start at the starting point we defined in the keyframes and not in its original place by using another value, which is backwards. So I will go back to my CSS. and change this forwards to backwards. Then I will go to my browser and reload. And now you can see the animation is starting from the point 500 pixels to the right and not from its original position. But because we changed forwards to backwards, the div is no longer staying in its final place. It's snapping back to its original position again. We can fix this easily by applying both forwards and backwards, so I will go back to my CSS and change this to both. And now, when I go and reload the browser, you can see that the element stays on the starting point for 3 seconds, then moves to the final point, and just stays there after the animation. So to wrap things up, the animation fill mode property just tells us where the element should start from and where it should end up. If we don't define it, the element will just start from its original state before any animation takes place, and it will also return back to this original state after the animation is finished. But we can use forwards to make the element stay at the final step of the animation, or we can use backwards to make it start from the starting point of the animation. Or we can simply use both to get the two results together.